Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learning. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Ben Marley at Geocale. Ben, welcome. How are you?
I'm very good, Stephen. I was just about to say back once again.
Back once again. Oh, you've done bits and pieces for me. So,
We have
so
many times.
you've been very kind. So thank you for coming on. The reason why you're coming on is I put on a post on LinkedIn saying that I've been talking to an estate agent and asking them if they had actually researched their agency. And if they were, would they use Google or chat or a another first? And then I put, out of curiosity, if you were selling or buying a property, which one would you start your search on? And I had about 4,500 impressions on LinkedIn, and I had 73 votes. And here's what I found interesting. 80% of people said that actually they would start their search on Google. And surprisingly, that I thought 19% only came back and said chat or the equivalent. Um, and I had some people, so I know you were interested in the data. I had a lady called Jane saying, I've done my own research on this, but what if chat used Google, Trustpilot, and other review sites to name the recommendations? This is the most likely outcome. And then I had Kevin say, if I was looking to sell my property, I would still speak to family and friends first regarding any experiences they had had. Then I would Google search. And then I had somebody else, Nick said, I'll still be on Google, but I think that will begin to change as the models improve. And I thought, you know what? Who can I get on who's an expert in AI and Google and SEO,
Sure.
just to have a conversation? But before I ask you the questions, again, what was also interesting is I've been doing a lot of Lister masterclasses at the moment. And in the last, I think, 7 days, I've most probably worked with 6 or 7 different agencies. And I've researched all of them by putting into chat as a buyer, as a seller. I'm thinking of selling my property in whatever town it
Location.
is,
Yep.
location it is. I'm looking for an agent who's going to get me a premium price and also do it in a timescale that suits me. Um, who would you recommend and in what ranking? Um, and it's been really interesting, some of the results. So some of the agents that have come in maybe sell 2 or 3 properties a year compared to others that have got incredible market share, but those agencies aren't showing. So as a SEO expert, and maybe I don't know what the terms are on AI expert, and I'm sure you're going to
Okay.
inform me now. Firstly, what do you make of those results? Does it surprise you as much as it surprised me? And secondly, if I am an agent now, and I know for a fact more people are looking on chat,
Yep.
and Gemini and
Yep.
Claude and all the others, um, what do I need to do as a estate agent to make sure I'm showing up on all these different
Sure.
AI platforms?
There's a lot to get through there, isn't there? Quite a few questions that kind of need a few stones that need overturning there. So I think first of all, let's just cover off the results that you got off your um, poll there, because I'm surprised and not surprised with those results. I'm not surprised that the numbers were what they were, because I would take a punt and say that the audience that your poll was probably reaching was estate agents. And right now, as an estate agent, you may not be in the realm or the mindset of using AI search as part of your default way of searching, because the vast majority of people still do use traditional searches, i.e., Google, as their kind of reference point and starting block. And I don't think that that's indicative of just estate agents. I just think that that's the general public, um, as a sort of sweeping statement. Most people would default to Google it because that is just one of the most universal terms that we all probably use in our daily lives. What I would say to it is that the where it starts and where it finishes might be the second part to that question. And this is almost like if we think about a journey, and if we think about the journey 25 years ago, early 2000s, would you have initially thought to have gone to Google to look for an estate agent? Absolutely not. You would have probably been looking in your local paper. You wouldn't have been looking at portals probably, because the portals probably didn't have enough traction that every single business was on it. You probably would have gone up and down a high street or looked at boards or looked at traditional print media, and someone else could have been having this conversation saying, would you ever even dream of starting your search online? And probably the results would have been absolutely not. If we fast forward that now, this is almost now like that same conversation, but 2.0, but just that traditional print media, boards and high streets is now Google. And the new wave that is coming is AI search. So for a lot of people that will potentially be starting their search, I actually think that there's probably more people doing more searches on AI than maybe what we realize at this moment in time. It might just be, but also think that that's typical of the type of person that might be doing it as well. I.e., if we think about that, normally, if we have two people that are looking, that are in a household who are selling a property, you normally get someone who looks to buy before they look to sell, and someone who looks to sell before they look to buy. Now, the person who looks to buy before they look to sell might suddenly come home one day and say, I've seen the house. This house has just come up on a portal, or maybe they've just seen it, the for sale sign down the street, or maybe someone shared it and they've noticed for whatever reason, the house that you've been eyeing up has now become available. Searching for an estate agent could now become a bit of a distress search, like, holy shit, we need to get an estate agent round quick because we can't lose this, etc., etc. Almost like if you need an emergency plumber. If you need an emergency plumber, you wouldn't go and ask some friends and families, do you know any good plumbers? While the radiator's pissing out loads of water, you just a panic search, you just Google it and you find out whatever you need to get as quick as you possibly can. I still believe that a lot of people will do those types of searches, and also that, again, we're just thinking about consumer behavior, because that is really what this comes down to. This isn't about personal preference. This comes down to user behavior, how people will get to where they want to based on their individual circumstances. If you've got someone who's got a property to sell and they're more of a cautious person, this is someone who wants to take their time, look to sell before they look to buy. It might be that someone's got maybe a more expensive home that they want to be quite considered with it. They know that, if you've got £1 million plus property or higher, that, this is quite a considerable consideration for anybody. But obviously in the upper end of the market, it's even more of a consideration, i.e. if you want to make sure you get it right. AI searches, and for anyone who hasn't really embrace this yet and endorse it, I would encourage you just to go and try it and just see what it's about. The difference between a Google search and an AI search, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, all of those kind of main players. The difference between the two is that if I go onto a search engine and I search estate agent my town, it will bring back results, and it's down to me as the searcher to decide which business I want to engage with. And obviously, as we know, that there are various ways that people can get themselves in front of people there, i.e. whether it be through paid ads that appear at the top, whether it's through trying to promote your Google profile to appear in the top through the map, or in the organic listings that appear underneath. It's still down to the user to decide who they want to go and click on, engage with, research, etc. But they have to click, they have to go further, etc., based on what you know, believe, etc. With AI, what you're doing is you're actually asking it a question. So you might go on and put, I've got to quote you, Stephen, earlier, you said, I've got a such and such home in this location. I believe it's roughly worth X, because as we know, most people have got a pretty good idea as to what their property is worth. No one invites an estate agent out saying, I've absolutely no idea how much my house is worth. So they have a pretty good idea as to how much the property is going to be worth. They might have a preconceived idea as to who they think is a good agent in their town or a good agent to sell their property. Yeah, obviously, we know things like brand reputation as similar properties to theirs that are currently marketing will be, a big contributing factor as to who they're going to get to engage with there. So you go on a chat GPT or one of the other LLMs and you will say, I've got this type of property to sell. It's based in this location. It's roughly worth this amount of money. I would like an estate agent who can deliver me really good service. I need someone who can sell my home for the best possible price. I need an agent who can sell it quick. I don't want this to drag on, etc., etc. Who should I talk to? Now, when the results come back, the difference between, say, a Google search versus an AI search is that in AI results, they quantify why they have brought the results back that they have. So typically in those types of searches, 5 results will come back as kind of being the recommended options. And in each of those recommendations, it will then demonstrate why it has recommended those based on the criteria that you have entered into it. Now, at the bottom of that, it will then often lead you to reprompt what you just put in. So it will say, right, what are the most important things to you? Do you want to make sure is getting the best price versus the agency valuation the most important thing to you? Is speed of sale? Which of these 3 options is the next thing? And I can narrow down the search. So what it'll then do is you might go, oh, number 1 and number 3. And I'll then narrow it down. All of a sudden, by the end of it, and again, anyone who hasn't tried this, try it, see what happens, do it in your town, try it in someone else's town, but just to get an experiment as to what happens. These platforms will now narrow these down within a couple of minutes. You can do what it would take you probably manually hours to do in terms of research. Where you're going to get the data from, how are you going to make the comparison? These platforms are designed to be unbiased. They are designed to be based on real information that is surfaced from both internal and external sources, whether they be third party or not. And it will then tell you why it's brought back these results. As a consequence, what's now happening is that businesses that are now being universally recommended by these platforms, when they then start to receive inquiries from a buyer or a seller who has said, oh, I went on to ChatGPT and they told me that you're the best agent for me. Well, guess what? You're now actually not competing against so many businesses because a lot of those other businesses have been disqualified on the basis that ChatGPT has told you why business A is now the right business for you. And what we're seeing now is that there is a distinct shift between the quality of leads and inquiries that come through to businesses when they're coming through AI search, because you have to make the list, right? Paramount that in order for you to receive that, you need to be in the mix already. Then based on what the customer's looking for, it will then decide as to whether you're going to be that agent or not that it recommends. When that lead comes through, what we're now seeing with our clients is that the strength of that lead is like nothing else that they've ever received before, because the consumer, and we talk about, again, user behavior. If I go onto ChatGPT now or Gemini and I put in, I take a screenshot or a picture of my broken down washing machine, and I now say to the AI search, this washing machine's broken down. I need a replacement. I've had it for 15 years, so I don't know what's a good one. Can you show me some examples of good ones that would replace the one I've got? I need the same size drum, the same size kilowatt. I want it to be energy efficient, etc., etc. It goes away. It tells me which ones now match that criteria, how much they're going to cost, where I'm going to buy them from. So if it then pulls up a list and it says, right, you can buy this one here from John Lewis, it does this, 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 or you can buy this one here from Curry's, it's X, Y, Z. Because I've now asked it the question and it's now brought back these results, what do I do? I now go and pop off to John Lewis, whether I do it online or go to the store, etc., etc., and I'll go and purchase it because I've I've embraced the platform that I'm trusting to do it. What I don't do is ignore it and then start ringing around my mum and dad and friends and people go, "What washing machine you got? Is it good?" Because you don't need to, because the platform's already recommended it for you. And that's why we go to these ones in the first place.
Okay. As an agent, how do I get into that mix now? What do I need to be doing to be ranking in that search?
So this is a really hard question to just give you everyone the silver lining, right? Because there is no one size fits all answer to this. What you have to remember about why do some businesses show up and others not? And before we start hitting this recording, you mentioned to me about you were sat with a customer and in their town, an agent showed up who is the smallest agent in their town. You don't have to be the biggest agent in the town. You don't have to have the largest market share. You don't have to take on more properties than anyone else. What you do need is digital plumbing. You need to have better digital plumbing than anyone else so that it can recognize you over someone else. How do you do that? You got to feed the machine. So if you imagine all the great things, if I sat down in front of an agent and I said, tell me why, why put, tell me about your business. Tell me why you're so good. Tell me all the great things that you do. And I could probably sit there and take 25 things that an agent or a business may tell me about what's great about them. If I then went and referenced the information that they've just told me against their website, their blogs, their social media, their external marketing, I would almost bet my hat that hardly any of the things that I'm being told about is represented online. These platforms can only surface information that they can find. So if a business is saying, look, we're really good at selling these types of properties in this location, in this village, and that's what we want to be known for, and that's what we want to get more of, the question you want to ask yourself is, how are you currently telling the digital world that? Because if if it isn't known online, then how would these platforms surface that information? And there's no point saying, well, these houses are on Rightmove. So what? So's everyone else's, right? You need to think about, how are you conveying that information in a format that these platforms will pick up on. Some of that will be within inside your own ecosystem, i.e., your own social media, your own website, your blogs, etc. Some of that will then be external. Where else are you writing about this, referencing yourself? One of the things that on a previous podcast that we spoke about was EEAT, EE, expertise, authority, trustworthiness, education. These are all things that the internet and these AI platforms are screaming out for. If you imagine, every single agent in every single town will have a local newspaper or online equivalent. Now, if you are writing a weekly article, monthly article for these types of things, guess what? You've got free rein to talk about whatever you want to talk about. This is a way of showing authority and expertise to an external platform. It's now being you're now being quoted on other external things. What about other people's blogs? What about your local community? What other things are you doing that you can potentially write about, that you could be cited for? All of these platforms, all of these systems love some of this stuff. So it's basically the crux of it really is, think about who you are, what are you about? What are your USPs that you really want to demonstrate, that if someone Googles it or someone goes on AI and they type this information in, are you actually feeding the engines that can surface this information? Otherwise, you will be sat there being the best kept secret in your town. And that is the worst title that anyone could ever hold.
Makes sense. So if I had to ask you three top tips to get
Yep.
or three top
Okay.
tips for being a digital plumber,
Yep.
I love that description. What would they be?
Okay, so mentioned earlier that on one of the comments from someone who responded on your thing, was it Jane who said, what did Jane say? What was Jane's comment?
I've already done my own research on this, but what if chat used Google, Trustpilot, and other review sites to name the recommendations?
Okay. Jane is absolutely spot on. Okay. So reviews is a big thing because if you are not positively being spoken about on either Google or other external third-party review platforms, you're not even going to be considered at all. So that is the first thing. It's 2026. If you have not got more than 150 reviews, you really need to think about why not, because reviews is not a new thing. You don't have to be a big business, right? If you started collecting reviews 15 years ago and you were collecting 5 reviews a month, that's 60 reviews a year. You'd have 750, 900 reviews. I know plenty of one branch businesses that have got over 1,500 reviews. You should be collecting reviews. Everyone should be, right? So collect reviews, make sure you are responding to reviews because all of these platforms love this. Concentrate on your Google business profile, making sure that that is fully optimized because this is almost like the foundations of the things that a lot of these platforms will want to surface. And do remember Gemini, okay? Gemini is the one platform that no one will be talking about because they'll all be talking about ChatGPT and they'll be talking about Claude, going, these are ChatGPT was everyone's best friend a year ago. A lot of people are now going, oh, Claude's better than ChatGPT. I actually am a converter from ChatGPT to Claude in terms of the way that I can use it within my business. Let's not forget that Gemini is owned by Google, right? So if we're thinking about who is the horse that you want to back in terms of this, make sure you never ever discount Gemini, because I can absolutely promise you that within the next 3 years, Gemini will own somewhere between 30 and 60% of the whole user space within AI search, because overnight, if Google wanted to, they could switch Gemini on as just being default search. And that will be an absolute game changer for the whole AI space. And I believe that at some point that probably will happen. What does Google own? It owns your Google business profile, it owns your Google reviews. So that is a massive, easy win that everyone should be taking into consideration and factoring in straight away. Photos, your reviews, your information. What can you talk about within your Google profile? And the one profile that no one is even considering updating or paying any attention to right now, which they absolutely should do, is Bing. I've just seen your face there, Stephen. You've gone, what is this guy smoking?
No,
Right?
because you know why, and I think it was Toby Martin who put an article, and I think it was yesterday on Property Industry Eye, and I'm just going to get that article up.
He might have stolen my information that I probably told him a few weeks
Oh,
ago.
fine, okay, so it could be where is it? So let's see. I don't know if it was. I'm sure it was Toby that basically said it.
I'm
Um,
sure, Toby, if you're listening, I'm sure you haven't stolen any of my data.
So I'm just going to see his articles. Right. What's your client actually worth? Was it that one? The number of agents. I don't know if it was that one, but I'm sure it was Toby that talked about it. And there was a comment on there, or maybe it wasn't a comment, but they talked about Bing. And there was a comment in there. I don't know what you're talking about. Who's ever heard of Bing?
Bing,
No,
right?
nobody uses Bing.
Okay.
That's why I smiled.
True story, right? The only people who use Bing is Microsoft employees. And my nan, who never knew how to change her default browser on her laptop from Bing to Google. Okay. However, Microsoft invested $73 billion
Okay,
dollars.
I take it back. It wasn't Ben. It wasn't Toby. It was Giles from Home Search
Okay.
that talked about it.
So Microsoft invested $73 billion dollars into OpenAI. And for anyone who
Yeah,
doesn't know what OpenAI is, that is the parent company that built ChatGPT.
yeah,
So if you think Apple is the not Apple, Alphabet, sorry, is the parent company of Google. Google is their product. OpenAI owns ChatGPT. So Microsoft invested $73 billion into OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT. They now have a 27% stake in OpenAI. As a consequence, your Bing profile is now factored in to those search results as much as a Google profile because their investors own it. So for anyone who is now sat there going, didn't even know I had a Bing profile, just go and check it out. Make sure that that information concurs with what's on your Google profile. Make sure that there's no missing information on there as well.
Okay, so
Okay.
here it is. On Bing, the company says query visibility increased from 1.7% to 20%, while district visibility rose from 3.3% to 33.3%. And this is why I love these comments on here.
On Property Eye,
Yeah, um, where let me just see. Somebody talks about Bing and says, "Oh, here we go." Um, This is interesting. As a human, I think the data lost credibility when on Bing was typed. Who uses Bing?
right? And look, to be fair, you only know what you know. If you didn't know that those numbers that I've just said, that Microsoft have obviously just invested heavily into it, and now your Bing profiles massively being factored into it, why would you care about it, right? But you need to because it's about showing consistency across the internet, as much as
Okay.
everything else, right? The last thing that I would encourage everyone to do, because it's free and you don't have to pay anyone to do it, is go and start writing a blog or a column in your local news. Whatever is your local paper or equivalent of the online version, go and write to them, ask them, I would like to start a column, a property column, talking about market updates in the Chronicle or the Herald or the Observer or whatever it is that is your local paper. All of these platforms are always looking for educated, informative content, and you don't have to pay anyone for it. This information will help in terms of being shown up in some of the AI results because it talks about authoritativeness, it talks about trustworthiness, and it shows your expertise when you're doing it, which is a lot of the factors that it's looking at. This isn't going to be a magic wand, but of course, we're talking about what can people go away and do right now for free. They don't have to pay anyone to do anything at all. These are things that you can go and do right now in action. And these are the foundation stuff that everyone should be doing. But I will come back to think about every single business. What's your USPs? What do you want to be known for? What are the locations? What are the price points? What are the property types that you want to be known for to be selling? I talk to agents every day, Stephen, the same as you do, right? The amount of conversations I have when someone says, I want to be known for selling these types of properties, these types of properties, these types of properties. You go, cool. How many of them have you got at the moment? Oh, hardly any. But that's what we want to sell more of. Okay, so how are you demonstrating that to either prospective customers or the digital world? Well, we're not. So how do you expect to get more? Oh, I just hope we just want to get more. You're never going to get that if you don't change something. So look, feed the machine. Think about who you are, what you're about, what do you want to get more of, and how can you display that as part of your digital footprint online?
Brilliant. Ben, really grateful for your time.
No
Thank
worries.
you so much. If people want to get hold of you, how do they do that, please?
So hit me up on LinkedIn, or you can contact us directly via the website, which is geocale.co.uk.
Brilliant. Well, thank you everybody for watching, listening. Please like it, share it, and just go and do one or two of those things that can make a massive, massive difference. And if you are watching this, send me a message because I'm curious to know where you do start your search. Is it on Google or is it on chat or equivalent? Thanks very much for your time, everybody. Bye.